We're going to cover chapter 6 today. Chapter 6 from your Lean Strategy textbook. Let's see. So we're going to get into the transformation process, the Lean transformation process. You know, we've talked about kind of the beginning stages, tried to define it, talk about the differences between traditional management and lean management. We've talked about some of the processes, methods used. So the value of lean obviously grows over time. And it should enhance growth and reduce expenses. So the three main intents for lean strategy is to challenge yourself to have the bad and double the good. Create a culture of problems first and free capacity to develop new products or services. So in the first part, challenge yourself to have the bad and double the good. You basically, you need to try to, everything you do, how can you improve any kind of process that you come across? And you just minimize the waste as much as possible. And every time you do this, like every time when you have to change the way you think, you have to constantly be thinking in this manner, with these lean practices in everything you do. And it's hard. There's a learning curve. You really have to understand what needs to be improved. You really have to understand how to create efficiencies. But you really have to challenge yourself every day. Constantly be thinking of ways to cut waste. Constantly be thinking of ways to minimize errors. Constantly be thinking of ways to use technology to decrease time. So, and your problems, create a culture of problems first. So you deal with whatever problem comes along first. You're not gonna, the manager, the CEO, executives aren't just handing down strategies to you. You are looking at where are you in this process, and the whole network of, basically this giant organization, and you're one part of it. You have one job. Wherever your job is, whatever problems occur, solving those problems in innovative, efficient ways. And obviously, capacity to develop new products and services. So, when we're talking about that, when you solve problems that create waste, you free up people, machines, spaces, and you can grow and add new products where that waste was, where that capacity was, where that space was, and create a new product or service. You're taking out all of that waste, and you are filling that gap or that empty space with something that can make you money. I guess is another way of creating a visual of what that means. I mean, just to jump back to this problems first, everything you do in that space that you're in, you're asking why. Why do we do it this way? Why am I using this machine? Why am I doing Why is it taking this long to make this widget or whatever it is? Why? Always know why you're doing something. And if there's not a good reason, then you can kind of think about, well, is this a necessary step? So, I mean, you're just kind of always thinking why. Always visualizing how could this be done better? Again, a whole thought process change. Okay. Accelerate Kaizen from teams. I think it's accelerating. I think that's the wrong word. So, I think that's a typo, so I'll have to fix that. Sorry about that. When a process fails, you stop the whole process and determine the cause right then and there. And we talked about that earlier when I was talking about that one-piece flow. You know, when there's a problem and the process has to stop, and then that problem needs to be solved immediately. Make new products on existing lines. We talked about that. And schedule engineering changes on what production can absorb. Run the smallest production batches possible for short lead times and low inventories. Now, so you have, as we talked about during the whole, we were going back and talking about TPS, the Toyota production, the Toyota production line there, when they ran out of money and they had to use their line to make other products, but they couldn't add a line. So they just had to be flexible and be able to change that line to manufacture another product. So obviously there's you have to schedule changes on what production can absorb. You have to make sure that there's a flow between production lines, between changing that line. You're making this product, and then when you've met that, demand inventory, when you've met your demand, you're not storing inventory, because the key to lean is not keeping large amounts of inventory. Batch, not making large batches, the just-in-time philosophy here. So you don't want to do, carry lots of inventory. So you're going to have to switch that line to, produce other products, which, I mean, obviously at Toyota, there'd be different types of cars in the same plant. And then you run the smallest production batches possible for short lead times and low inventory. So you're using the pull method, not the push method. You're only making as much as demanded. So you're not going from a forecast. Okay, we think you're going to need this many Toyota, I'm just going to say Camrys or whatever. And so we want you to produce this many, and hopefully they'll sell. That's not how it works here. It's basically they do, based on maybe previous data, they come up with, okay, this is how many we need right now, and we'll make this much, and then we'll stop and see. They constantly reassessing the demand for it. So this will give short lead times and low inventories, and we want low inventories and short lead times. We want to get the product out to the customer as soon as possible, and we don't want to keep inventory on hand as little as possible. The financial aspect. This requires financial managers to reframe it in a different perspective. And it's kind of difficult because with the financial, normally this wouldn't be something that finance would be on board with. But there is a financial argument that, basically Kaizen leads to greater margins and profits. But it's really hard. You have to change the way you think in financial management terms. basically Kaizen and Jidoka don't change the return on investment formula, but they do change the way we think about influencing it. So it's kind of indirect, maybe, from a financial perspective, the benefits of it would be kind of indirect because you've got more quality, that increases sales, and it reduces cost. And it also creates flow to increase sales by reducing the lead times. And that will reduce the need for capital investment. So you have to, it's a different way of thinking in as far as the financial aspect of it. So people aren't just cost to be replaced by cheaper labor or automation. And in the lean view, the costs go down. So because of Kaizen, like I just said, oops, let me go back there. I didn't mean to go that quickly. And then obviously in traditional financial management, costs will go down if they are controlled line by line. So it's just a different way of thinking. And it's probably going to be difficult for the finance, a finance department to get on board with this. So you really have to produce, the benefits and try to convince them, that these things matter. Lower manufacturing costs, increased quality, and the effects on that long term on the financial aspect of it. So your traditional method of accounting, you've got your standard costs, and each part of the product's cost, and then deviations from the standard are calculated and represent deviations from the ideal. And then it's different to understand unless you were an accountant. Difficult, sorry. So value stream, plain English, P&L. It's a financial statement, and it's a simplified financial statement. It's basically easier for teams to understand, and it's the primary tool for accounting for lean. Now, so it's not the same method that's used for traditional accounting, but it is used for lean. Now, there's an example of it in your text. Obviously, this is not something you're going to need to know how to do or anything, but it is important because it is how accounting is done, and it helps during a lean transformation. This is a more accurate representation than a regular traditional way of doing it. Basically, this helps the finance department, or even the executives in that area, understand how it works better in the business overall after a lean transformation versus if you just use a traditional financial statement. Because you're going to have to, this is something you're going to have to, they're doing the transformation too. Finance is like, what's going on here? What are we doing? I don't understand how I'm supposed to, continue to, perform accounting duties in this organization if I don't understand what changes are going on. And this is a better way of showing them the standard cost accounting system, of dismantling that and then moving on to a value stream. Focused statement. So anyway. This is what you want to know just for that. You just want to have a general idea. But there is a difference. Just for the purposes of this class, I would say, all you really need to know is that accounting in a lean organization is more adequately represented by this kind of statement than a standard cost accounting system based statement. I guess that's probably the best thing. The only thing you really need to know is that for now. Because this course generally, and I don't want to, like I could go line by line and talk about it, but I don't want to do that because this is more of a broad overview of Lean, and this is one facet of it. You'd probably want to take financial accounting for Lean if you were going to delve deeply into that. But your text is pretty adequate in showing you an example of that, and you probably have seen a general accounting ledger before, and there's, it'll help you. I'm sorry, a financial statement before, not a ledger. A financial statement that would help. You can see the differences. Taylorism versus lean thinking. If you've been taking any kind of principles of management course or intro to management, you probably talked about Taylorism. Taylorism is a long, very old philosophy in manufacturing, and still the main one. And some people would argue that there's a new version of it called digital Taylorism. Excuse me, I'm a little bit of a congested today. Digital Taylorism that's going to take hold, and that's a whole nother lecture. But basically, with Taylorism, it is a very narrow division of labor, belief in economies of scale, bigger, faster machines, increased inventory, causing costs to be spread across all product through overhead allocations. So that's kind of your main components of Taylorism. There's different aspects of it in regard to, it's basically scientific management. It was basically one of the early attempts to apply science to management processes, specifically in manufacturing, because during the time it came out that was mostly the business industry was heavily into manufacturing, more manufacturing organizations at that time. Factory management was a big deal. I mean, it was kind of a top of mind thing. Whereas now we're more of a, you can see it's more of a service business environment now versus back then. So lean thinking is build only what we need when we need it. Do it in a flow that avoids excess inventory. Do it efficiently. Take away steps. How can we do it faster? How can we decrease the time? How can we decrease errors? How can we cut out steps? Minimize capital investment by reusing same machines, equipment, same lines. So you can see the big difference. I'm going to go back to the previous slide. Bigger, faster machines, increase inventory. Less inventory, less capital. Can we repurpose this machine and use it for different things? Can we make adjustments to our line and make a different product? Can we use the same equipment for different things instead of using specialized equipment for certain products or services? So, growth, strategy, and new product. So, long-term growth is continue to grow customer relationships and attracting new customers. And then obviously driven by regular and rapid introduction of new products. So in an ideal lean manufacturing situation, you'd have a line that can create many different products that are in demand and will generate a large profit. And you can change that line to make a different product easily and efficiently and quickly with minimum cost, service, and time, basically. Okay, so we're going to talk about burn in your text. And so from the last week, our next steps from the last week were gather leadership team and set direction and expectations for Kaizen kickoff. So for your Kaizen kickoff, you're going to start with your most important value stream. And whatever your industry's in, attack the biggest problem in your major value stream first. So that's like the Kaizen kickoff meeting. And when you read this chapter, you're going to talk about, it's going to show you, like, it's good. We're going back to our scenario, of course. And one of the first things you can do is reduce setup time, obviously. Because that's when you start, before you start, you want to reduce the time it takes to set up and get going, and for your product line or whatever you're doing. Now in this case, for your Kaizen, the Kaizen kickoff, in the book, it talks about your scenario, and you have already, basically the projects have already been chosen for the biggest gains and goals for the week. So there's going to be people that are going to work on the setup time. How can we reduce that? And then there's someone that's going to be working on the flow. And there'll be a certain product family, a value stream that we talked about there. And then there'll be another team that's going to be focused on office Kaizen, order entry. So you got order entries, people working on order entry, someone working on setup, and someone working on the one piece, the flow. So see how that you got different teams working on each part of the process of making this product or your value stream. And leadership, the leadership needs to focus on progress goals that will deliver more value. So they're looking at all this process going on, and they're going to need to worry about, okay, so what are our goals? What do we set? What goals have been met? What's the progress on the goals? And how will that deliver customer value? And they're going to need to be hands-on. They're going to be talking over. They're going to be over here, looking at the setup time, talking to them, and seeing, okay, what have we tried? What are we going to try? How can we, let's measure the setup time. Trying this, let's try A, let's try B, let's try C. Let's see what the timing is here. Okay, let's say we got a good time there, and then going to go over to the flow team and say, okay, here's our product. Let's see how it flows through the system. Where are there hang-ups? Where are there bottlenecks? How can we make changes? How can we decrease that time? Are the machines okay? Is there any maintenance? Are there any maintenance issues there? And then they're going to go to the office and say, okay, let's look at our order entry system. How does that work? And, how long does it take you to put in an order? Or what are the errors per order? All of those things. Hands-on, on the floor. That's how they're going to be handling it as a manager versus, they're going to be sitting in an office waiting for you to come to, okay, well, if you have any problems, come and see me in my office, that kind of thing. He's going to be out there. She's going to be out there talking and learning what's going, being right up there to witness what's being tried and what's working and what's not working. So, and all of this is in your book. as far as like some detail, the team. Just make sure to read through all that, because this is a very thorough example, but you want to make sure that you're getting on there and and reading in that textbook and just reading the whole scenario as it plays out. Because this, like I said, this author is experienced in lean transformations, and he's giving you basically an example of how the process from start to finish, how it works. Okay, so lean leadership traits, just in general, they need to be committed, consistent, accessible, and supportive. They need to be on the floor. They need to be willing to take risks. And they need to maintain and promote lean fundamentals. They need to basically constantly be like a cheerleader for the lean fundamentals. How do we do lean? What does it mean? How do you demonstrate the behaviors that need to be, part of the lean transformation? They need to be those leaders need to be able to tell you, help you specifically transform from a traditional mindset to the lean mindset, and continually do so to help reinforce that over and over, because it is hard to keep that up without being almost repetitive and being reminded, because it's a whole different paradigm. The vision of a lean leader starts with clear understanding of value from the point of view of the customer. So when this happens, there needs to be the lean leader has to have an idea of what the customer values and wants. Otherwise, you don't have any goal, that you have to have that goal. You want the customer to be satisfied. You want to maximize efficiency and maximize value for the customer. So you need to know what the customer values in order to do that. Obviously, they spend, like I said, they're hands-on. They're servant leaders. They're out there helping. They're assisting their floor employees. And obviously, they show respect, and they provide them with opportunities to improve and some autonomy to be creative. Okay. Well, this is, and this is just the example. We kind of talked about it already. With the order entry and everything. Okay, now, Team 1, we're going to get into more detail here. Working on floor with press 43. So, with Team 1, we're on the floor. And it takes 3 hours to change press from one product to another. So, in order to see, that's one facet. We've got a machine that we need to change from one product to another. But boy, it takes 3 hours. So, that's just one thing that we can reduce time, because if we can reduce the time for that change, we can increase the number of setups, decrease lead time, decrease maintenance issues, and reduce wasted materials. So you have to establish targets for all of those things. We have Team 2's process is similar to Team 1. Team 3 deals with flow, so the focus is on the highest volume product. Current state is that the product is made in various functional departments scattered around the plant. So instead of having that scattered about, we can make that much more efficient. The problem is 6-week lead time, excess labor and space, and inventory varies between 2 and 3 months. That's a lot. There's quality issues. Products travel a long distance to get made, and it's a push system. So in that case, you have to make goals for all of these issues. In this case, they reduce the lead time 1 to 2 days. Their objectives are to reduce lead time to 1 to 2 days, cut labor by 50%, lower WIP by 90% and reduce space needed by 50%. So that's the goal. And we're gonna lose. We gotta lower that inventory. Definitely. But all of these things, you know, these are all objectives. So then you have to work toward that. Oh, reduce travel by 90% because those things are going all over the, you know, different departments. The travel time for that product is which, you know, the travel increases the time. And then establish a pull system, which is the, you know, the just-in-time. And then for Team 4, you got your office-based order entry. Errors are high, 5%, overstaffed, product allocation, stock out. So they don't have enough product on hand to do the orders. They have incorrect quantity and prices. And large orders cause problems, bottlenecks. So their targets are set out here, and that's cut order entry errors to under 2% versus where it's at 5 now. Cut staff by 20%, develop solution for large orders, and create new rules for product allocation. So these are all goals. So this is the step where you look at what are the problems. After you go through all this to examine what the problems are, then you develop targets to meet. And Kaizen is a doing activity that requires a great deal of focus and commitment and teamwork. So really it's you know, you can talk about it all you want, but you have to do it. And this is why this book is so good, because it talks about, you know, it gives you a process of it being, you know, the whole process from start to finish and how it's done. Because I can tell you this, but, you know, and like I said, if you did it, you would obviously get the best idea of, you know, learn by doing is very effective, you know, simulations. But this book is at least a start to finish that helps you visualize how it works in real practical terms in real life. So if you have any questions or concerns, let me know and I'll be happy to assist you. And have a great week. Thank you for listening.